All right, let's start with SUSE Tools workshop today, first Friday of a month. Again, we will do a SUSE Tools roadmap discussion. And for that, let me share my screen and then we can switch over to the individual tickets. So for roadmap, what we can look at is the tickets which we have closed within the last 60 days. And this time we can actually look into the last 60 days because we didn't have that meeting in let me check. So we had the roadmap presentation at the beginning of August, and then we skipped that due to many people being absent in vacation at the beginning of September. And now we should be back with the usual full strength, but we will take a look at the 2 months period. So for our normal team's velocity, we would expect that we would have about 2 tickets per day, or for 60 days, I would say 120 tickets. But here we can also see the impact of the vacation period, that we have 77 tickets, so slightly above the mean value of 1 ticket per day, but not as high as during the periods in before. We have some feature requests that we worked on, some concrete bugs, and most goes in that block here. If we group result by the coding ticket tracker, the project, then we see that a big chunk is in OpenQA infrastructure. And if we go into the tickets by priority, I think it should also become obvious where we did some more reactive work. So we had some problems that we needed to handle, which were related to the infrastructure as well as related tooling, and also changes like the authentication approach for the SUSE internal IVS, the build service used for building sleep products, was changing the authentication approach. So that was motivating some change. You can see here in the high ticket category that how we are handling alerts, which you can see here, like similar alerts for various different hosts, being PowerPC as well as x86 64. And we still have some problems observed on PowerPC hosts in particular, which are also related to the upgrade of Leap 15.3 to Leap 15.4. Most likely it's the new major version of upstream kernel changes, which cause sporadic crashes of system and like really hard crashes, which are not a panic that can be recovered by automatic rebooting, but needs external means like IPMI to recover. But I will come to that later. You just see that, for example, QA Power 8.5 is appearing here and here and here. So you can see that now it looks like all of those stories are showing up as related. Then there are also there was also some work regarding this one here regarding updates of the QEMU UEFI OVMF images. There an update of this image from the version of 2020, which was in Leap 15.3, to the new version in Leap 15.4, which is coming from this year, was causing some OpenGate tests to misbehave in multiple different areas and the issue still persists. So what we did here is use one approach, which is to use a prepared image, which can be provided as assets to different UEFI tests. But this can cause either side effects in some scenarios, so it doesn't fix all the cases, or what it could also cause is that no, sorry, not what it also causes, but that there are also other problems which are still not fixed, and they're just coming from that image. So it becomes more and more apparent that this is something that we cannot really fix easily. We can only apply workarounds for what we see is really an upstream issue in these images changing, which cause issues like not being able to boot from the HDD after installation, or not being able to switch to a text terminal after the installation is conducted. So something that we will report upstream and then try to mitigate where we can. You can also see this is one story which I would like to point out in particular. We have also discussed that in a recent workshop session about wait still screen and wait screen change improvements, that we did look into an open QA test in particular, which is normally what we don't do, but I think in some examples it's good. We can also try to, get our own experience from the users, from the testers' perspective. So what we did here is that we looked into the Chromium test, which was losing characters when typing into the address bar sometimes. And statistics tell us that the Chromium test is much more stable now, but also faster than in before, with a quicker response, checking every single character that is typed before continuing, but not wasting time in the process. So take that as an example, and that can be applied to other cases wherever you see in particular GUI applications that behave with sporadic losses of key presses with typing too fast or mixing up characters. Then you can look into the same approach, thinking of Firefox tests, maybe Google Chrome compared to Chromium. I guess maybe also something like LibreOffice Writer with its automatic spell checking, which might have some process running in the background, making the system busy while typing certain words, which was also showing of mixing up characters sometimes. In total, we can see that the ratio regarding priority is, I would say, is okay. It's still something that we should keep an eye on. So we have some urgent tickets, which is less than 10% of all the tickets, which I think is the same ratio. If it's, if there are no urgent tickets, then likely that means that nobody cares about what we are doing. If there are too many urgent tickets, that means that we are running in a headless chicken mode and need to change and adapt our plans from day to day, and people never find the time to do proper background improvements and new feature requests. So there are some urgent tickets. We have a lot of high tickets. I would say that ratio is a bit too high because it's just short of half of all the tickets are high or urgent, which I think is a bit too much. So there was a bit too much reactive work in the last period. I think that can be explained by reduced team's capacity due to vacation period and other absences. And that means that our priority shifts more towards the reactive work. And when we can again enforce the team with higher capacity, then means by keeping the absolute numbers of the reactive work more or less at the same steady level, we can increase the amount of more planned work, which was already laid out in before, which is linked to bigger epics or sagas as feature requests. There's also an amount of low tickets, and low for us means that something that is certainly not urgent, but of course, overall still an improvement for the future. So this is why we have that section. Any questions or additions so far for the resolved tasks that we have worked on? Then let me go back to the sorting by category. So we have discussed this section, the high and urgent tickets from blank. And what I want to point out now are the concrete bugs and find out what we have showing up here. There is something about related tooling and also CI checks in OpenQA, which we worked on. For the people that don't know, we have so-called OpenQA and OpenQA test. So we have OpenQA testing itself. And this is a test approach which so far proved to be still very beneficial and useful just to digest our own products as well as to really increase the test coverage for cases where unit or integration tests within the OpenQA project cannot cover everything, and which includes here this one point, which is about testing containers, because we can install OpenQA as a single person, single user instance with just RPM packages. We can pull them in from containers, but we also have expanded that to have complete Helm charts to spin up that infrastructure of worker, database, and web UI host. For feature requests, I already mentioned related to Chromium improvements for wait screen change and wait still screen. And now this feature was a prerequisite for that we add support for wait screen change, in particular with the no wait option, to be used in cases where we combine it with typing. So for example, type string can take options like to type in a different velocity. This is here combined with the wait screen option to say whenever we type, we also want to wait for the individual characters to appear or blocks of characters to appear to be sure that this is really being processed and echoed by the system before we continue, so that we prevent the buffer of unprocessed keys being exceeded and losing characters. I explained the OVMF image preparation. The next thing is the yeah, okay, not so important here, I would say. Let's see. Yeah, we concluded one saga within this last time period. So we have user stories on the lowest level for feature requests. The next higher level is an epic. So user story we plan to finish within the scope of weeks, days or weeks. An epic we are targeting for weeks or months, including multiple user stories. And the saga is something about the plan for months or years. And we are happy that we could resolve this saga here about easy multi-machine handling, where we want to see multi-machine tests treated as first-class citizens. So multi-machine tests are included in OpenQA for a very long time. but they haven't really been included or properly designed into the system from the beginning. So we needed to do a bit of rework in the background to make them more sustainable and to be able, whenever any potential further problem comes up or feature request, that we are able to apply the same mechanism to single machine tests as well as multi-machine tests. But also this includes something which is visible to users. So you might already have learned about the possibility to trigger multiple tests in a cluster with the jobs post route. Using OpenK client, you can trigger individual jobs, or you can trigger complete builds which are predefined within OpenK. And now it's possible to trigger with jobs post multiple tests as part of a cluster, so a multi-machine cluster, together taking individual parameters on a command line, which are then going into the individual jobs of the cluster or all jobs on the cluster. This is just one example. There are also visual improvements, and there are, let's say, quality of life improvements regarding the investigation, how it's rendered, how it's processed, how you can interact with those, how you can restart jobs as part of a cluster, how you can restart complete clusters. Certainly, there are always some cases or consequences of that where it's not optimal or maybe sometimes a bit surprising behavior, and that's okay. It's just that we are on a much better base here, and basically, I would say we have more or less, I would say, feature parity between single machine tests and multi-machine. And then this one story I would like to explain. So cover code of auth audience path backend /fully. That is unit and integration test coverage for auth audience backends, meaning that users will not see a direct effect of this, but is seen as a prerequisite to work on bugs that we have in the backlog regarding various backends, as well as feature requests for various backends. For that, we need proper test code coverage. Yes, you all know that, but we didn't have that for auth audience in particular in some areas, in particular for non-chemo backends. And now the complete backend folder in auth audience is completely covered, statement coverage, right? That should also help you in case you want to develop any features or bug fixes within auth audience within any backend, be it like the chemo backend, as well as, let's say, Power VM HMC backend or the SVIRT backend, S390 and such, that the tests which are included within the repository should give you a very good sense of if you're introducing any problems or how you can implement your own feature or bug fix. Okay, so that would conclude the introduction about the resolve tasks. Questions or additions to that? I see none. So let's then go on to the backlog, starting with the top level view. So the top level view, this is the sagas that we currently have in our backlog. And as you saw in before, we concluded one saga within the last period. And in the meantime, we have 5 sagas. So that's, let's say, a bit too much because that really doesn't give enough focus for the team. So I would like to reduce that in the meantime. At best by being able to conclude the saga, but it might also need some replanning and hence further postponing or even denying the work on some of the stories. So what we have here, let's go from the oldest ticket still open to the youngest. We have the oldest one is the saga about scaling out. The goal is to have redundant load balancing deployments of OpenQA, easy container setup, and containers on Kubernetes. So that should go the full range from you being able to just spawn OpenQA by running a single line for starting one or multiple containers, as well as going higher on the scale for an infrastructure, for example, running on Kubernetes or any container management framework that allows to run multiple individual container on multiple different hosts to form a complete OpenGA infrastructure that is able to serve multiple users. The potential could be that we are also fully migrating one of the two main instances that we maintain, being O3 and OSD, but it can also be any other instance. The next one is SUSE maintenance QA workflows with fully automated testing, approval, and release. So we do have, for example, QEM bot and QEM dashboard projects which we have made fully open source within the past months. And those are an important part of the SUSE maintenance QA workflows, so that every SLE maintenance update as well as every LEAP maintenance update is automatically tested and also covering the process of approval and release. So assuming that all OpenQA tests are successful or some kind of sufficient review and triaging has been applied, let's say a test fails, but it's marked as ignorable for a certain update, then this one is still marked to be ready for approval and release. It doesn't mean that OpenQA does release SLE maintenance updates, so that's not within our scope, but it means that we support that cycle so that at best, the only thing that humans need to do is review of the contributions, approve them, and then the update receives the stamp of approval without any further need of manual testing. The third one is stable and updated non-chemo backends for SLE validation. So think of the one user story which I presented to ramp up the test code coverage within the OS audience backend. So this is related to this saga here, where we see the persisting need and the persisting benefit of OpenQA testing on various architectures and various hardware platforms or hardware simulating platforms. And there, it's probably will stay like that forever, that Chemo is the most stable setup and the most reliable setup, but we can still bring others to a higher level. So after we have now improved the test code coverage within OS audience, my expectation is that we can provide, where necessary, some urgent bug fixes more easily, but also that you have a better base for extension where you see the need yourself. And of course, wherever you would like to contribute something like that, we are really appreciating that effort, and we are offering help and support. And we have a fourth saga about properly maintained maintenance QA tooling. That one is related to the maintenance QA workflows, or you can also see it as it came up as a kind of partially a prerequisite, but it also covers other maintenance schedulings. Think of the test review template generator that is used within SLE maintenance, or the OSC plugin, or M2E, the maintenance test update installer, which now is also within the scope of our team to maintain, and to be able, similar story as for the stable backends, to be able to maintain those for the upcoming future. We need to have sufficient knowledge built up within the team so that members of the team actually know what this is about, because in many cases, nobody that is currently within the team contributed to this tooling in before, or has only very superficial experience with that, maybe as a user, but not as a real developer. And the tooling, let's call them legacy projects, they are having no or little automated tests, so it makes any kind of changes risky unless we apply proper software development and maintenance techniques like increasing test coverage and such. And then there's the last saga, and that one was also the main saga driving most of the reactive work in the past month. So you might all have heard that there were problems due to failed climate control in SUSE Nuremberg data centers. Then there is an still ongoing move between locations, going from old office locations and old data center locations to new locations being elsewhere within the city of Nuremberg, and also other areas that are under prospect. And while we need to plan all that and conduct moves, migrations, and upgrades of the setups, we also need to maintain what is, for the time being, still staying at the former location. And also here, there's a bit of a problem that we, within the current composition of the SUSE tools team, we inherited some of this maintenance, and there often is limited experience on our side on how that was set up. So this is why also sometimes we are struggling with that, but we need to have a proper plan. This is why we have that saga. Okay. Comments or questions on the levels of the sagas?
What's the estimation of them, like how for delivery?
Right, good question. So for user stories, we have the estimation that we expect them to be able to be finished whenever we pick them up, to be able to finish within roughly 2 or 3 weeks. Okay, and that depends on when we pick them up. So there's a lead time, like from the creation date of a task until we finish, and then there's the cycle time. When I talk about cycle time, then I mean how long does it usually take to finish a user story as soon as it is picked up? That is 2 to 3 weeks. The lead time for user story depends very much on priority. For example, for a high ticket, we expect the tickets to be picked up in the same scale within some weeks. For an urgent ticket, we pick it up within days. For a normal ticket, we pick it up within months, and for low tickets, there's no defined time frame. For sagas might not really be completely finished, because sagas are so big, and are also composed of some future potential improvement ideas, that I need to move sagas out of the backlog when they actually haven't been completely finished. So having 5 sagas here and having only a few more people within the team, that's too broad a scope that we can handle. So likely I will need to remove 1 or 2 sagas from the backlog again and the according tasks with it before it's being done. That means that the estimate when is it completed is indefinite. But for others, let's say, so for SUSE maintenance QA workflows, I think we can finish that within the next few months. So let's say until spring of next year, we definitely should have that done, if not sooner. I would like to have it sooner. And then for stable and updated non-chemo backends, likely the same. So weeks or months for that one to be done. The up-to-date and current QA setup in SUSE is depending a lot on external factors like when a new data center would be available. And that could be it could be in some months, or it might be in some years when that work is delayed and we are just passively waiting for that. Does that make sense as an answer to you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have another question.
Sure.
Uh, like specifically for the one SUSE maintenance QA workflow with fully automated testing.
Yeah.
How have you mm, uh, sync with the POs about that? Why I'm asking this because like Peter Chervinka has I found that he's against some bots and stuff. So many for LTP and HPC we steer away from this approach.
Yeah.
And for me, it was kind of confusing in the beginning how I have to check in 2 or 3 places to find settings or where to put them and stuff like this. So, how do you collaborate with the POs for these things? For
Right. I would say the main collaboration happens and should happen within the SUSE internal weekly QE sync process. Sorry, the QE sync process. So there's a separate project in progress, QAM, QASLE collaboration. And there's this weekly QE sync meeting at the on Wednesday, which every squad should be represented within. So commonly the product owners or representatives of the squads participate in here, and there are stories. If we take a look within that saga, then we find, for example, here tickets which are part of the saga, which are in the QM QSLE collaboration project. So this is in particular when we or others see the need of coordination or decision making. And I think there are right, there's this one topic which is still open: formally communicate test failures that should be ignored for auto approval. So that's one point that's a bit up for discussion. What we plan as part of that is a feature within QEM bot that we say QEM bot, which I mentioned is one of the core features as part of the SLE maintenance process. That QEM bot would be able to be instructed to say, okay, a test fails, but please ignore the failure for the acceptance of a certain incident. Do you think that would be related to the open topics you mentioned, Janis?
not sure, to be honest. I need to also check the tickets.
Yeah.
I'm just wonder if we are sync and if
Yeah,
if
good
we
point. I mean,
check.
I'm really interested in the topic. Okay, let me add one more thing. Is that what
Just
I
one sentence.
yeah, Marita?
Excuse me. I mean, Peter Cervinka is definitely regularly on these meetings Wednesday morning, so he's there. So if you check with him and if you have things that should be brought up on this Wednesday morning meeting, then yeah, talk to him and he should bring it up and open tickets. Yeah, but he's definitely there
Right.
and knows all we discuss.
Yeah, we might need to identify the individual questions or the topics that we need to bring up there, but we already have that forum where we can discuss it. One thing which I would like to add here is that what I see as a feasible goal for this epic is to, for the saga, is that we have, we are, I would say we are mostly there. And if we are more or less okay with the current workflow, and then we say that we have covered all the bigger holes in that process, then we are done. And that is relying on the automation which is existing already. I'm not really happy with it, and there is certainly a potential for a complete design overhaul, but I don't think that this is not feasible to do within that saga. And I would say, as soon as we covered the biggest, roughest patches right now, then we have to conclude. And of course, I understand if that leaves many construction site and areas for people where they feel like, we could improve this or that, because I feel the same. It's just that I don't think it's worth the effort at the current time. Okay, more questions or notes on the levels of the top level view? Okay, then let me go back. So we have covered the top level view. The high level view would be, let's say, somewhere in the middle. And now I would like to show the complete backlog in the current state. So what the complete backlog tells us is that in total we have 96 tickets in the backlog. The biggest section by far is the blocked tickets. Blocked, maybe it's not as bad as you might think. Block in many cases could be that we are just blocking a parent ticket like an epic or a saga by individual sub-tickets that we actually work on. So then it's okay, because we just say like, well, okay, we do this or that user story as part of the saga, and before we define more subtasks, we first would like to finish one feature and then come back to a planning and estimation process to discuss where does it make sense for the bigger story. There are currently 3 tickets in progress, so actively being worked on right now. And you can see that 2 of them are assigned to myself, which is again reactive work related to the infrastructure, because network switches recently misbehaved, and then we lost contact to a worker. This is why I was also in the lab physically yesterday to recover a system. And Tinita is working on the QEMU OBMF problem, because we have applied that one solution, but as I pointed out, that has multiple unexpected side effects and bad impacts. So we are still working on that, and also looking into many related tickets which are actual test failures, which often fall in the scope of one of your testing related squads, but where we feel like we can apply the biggest help, and also nobody from the test squad has picked up those tickets. So what's in new is like stuff that just came up recently. Let's not go into too much detail about that, because they're not of high or higher priority. We have 27 workable tickets. So this is what you can expect that we will work on within the next days or weeks, what we will pick up. So we have, as high tickets, we have 5 pieces. We have bot approved update request without failing test. So that's QEM bot. Actually, most of us in the team, we looked into that yesterday in a joint session. So it's a regression, or it's a bug where we see a problem that actually an approval was happening of a SLE maintenance update, and we see that there are actually tests which are failing, and we see them related to a certain incident, but still the incident was approved by the board or the dashboard agreeing that there was nothing failing. So a mismatch in the data source or what the message tells us. Then we have the OpenGA and OpenGate test failing in one start. So we still have to investigate on what the actual impact is. Most likely, again, this is related to bigger problems in the OpenSUSE repository infrastructure. I'm pretty sure that most of you have observed that whenever you install Zipper recently in the past months, that sometimes it runs into a timeout or weird download problems. And yeah, we see the same a lot, applying retry here and there, and that's rather painful. Then we have problems with individual bare metal testing machines, which some sporadically fail, and there's problem in reading data over the network. So what we need to do there is dive in deeply and understand why some hosts have network problems right next to other hosts connected to the very same switches and such. We have also worked, this is in the QA project, so it's not directly related to OpenGA or something. We have bots which are commenting on tickets. And there was a problem in the original implementation that the same reminder is popping up from time to time if no people react on a ticket. Of course, the right approach would be like if a bot says, hey guys, we agreed in our workflow that urgent ticket means that there must be an update within a week. But when there's no update, then a comment appears. But of course, that comment shouldn't be, if for whatever reason the ticket is not updated by any person, then, and that's the unexpected behavior, the bot would comment on that. So I would like to really see that fixed quickly so that we do not have annoying comments. We observed a problem with an IPMI connection. So this is what Dominic, who gladly joined the team for squad rotation program for the upcoming months, has now picked up. He does have the experience working with the infrastructure, so we are really happy to have him on the team to help us with such problems. We have Salt State, and that has a problem with running some tests, in particular when someone who is not commonly contributing to that repository is providing an outside contribution. And of course, we want to help you help yourself. So we really appreciate if you do provide merge requests, and we want to make that easier for you so that you can run proper tests. We have one ticket, which is on the QM curiously collaboration project, because we do see the need of the higher level coordination and support there. Currently, we do not have any PowerPC testing in OpenQA, OpenSUSE org, and this is now going on for multiple weeks due to the one single machine, which is of course a single point of failure, and it is currently not available, is broken. There's another ticket in feedback. We're really desperately looking for anybody to help there, and so far we received some helpful pointers, but nobody really that has the expertise to really investigate what's going on with the machine and then fix it. And this is a related story here, which was to say like, well, of course, if we can't get that one machine to run, then we would benefit from other replacement machines, but basically the the problem is the same. You're reaching out for help, and nobody came up so far and could help us there. We have test fails in update installed in PowerPC. That's coming from the OpenGate test repository. So that's something that was observed in the test, and the cause of the problem is not exactly clear. So this is why this needs to be investigated and helped with. Then we have two workers in the O3 infrastructure, OpenGate Worker 19 and OpenGate Worker 20. And they are set up. Actually, one of them is set up. The other one is currently under the RMA process. So it's back with the vendor and being replaced and being shipped back. But both of the machines should also be able to run multi-machine tests. So that's an additional step that still needs to be done. Then we have the plan to use and implement more wheels, the OS Audience plugins. There already is the OS Audience wheel launcher project, and we came up with the idea to have a wheel boot project, which could be used together with the wheel launcher wheels. And in the process of coming up with that, we can gain experience ourselves how we can combine multiple wheels into projects. And yeah, Pavel, I followed this story. So there was one wheel already added to OS Audience Distri OpenSUSE, which is a personal project and which is now included in all the tests, even if it's not necessary for all the tests. So that's something which can also help us with some experience. But I would say in that case, I think the most important points have been raised already, like only use the wheel when we need it. Don't use it for all the tests, and do not use personal repositories. We have a problem that IPMI passwords in tests using those, like bare metal machine testing, that the IPMI password is appearing in some OpenGate jobs. Then we have some work regarding the QEM bot. Already mentioned the ignore not okay OpenGate jobs for specific incident based on OpenGate job comment. So something like you write a comment on OpenGate, and then QEM bot knows that despite the job failing, it will not block the approval of the selected explicitly mentioned incident. That one above is also related to QEM bot, is about better feedback on IBS. So like if on IBS, the bot either approves an update because all related tests pass or are acceptable, or in some cases it does not approve, then we should have an according comment explaining what is going on, because common question coming up in chat is like, hey guys, what are we waiting for? Why is this update not being approved? And an automatic comment should help. I would like to see in documentation suggested workflows for multiple teams running OpenGate test results. The current OpenGate documentation is showing how OpenGate can be set up and can be used by single persons, but not, and individual features are explained, but not necessarily for a newcomer coming to a project like bigger instances like OpenGate SUSE.org and OpenGate SUSE.de, how multiple teams can review the OpenGate test results and collaborate with each other without stepping on each other's toes. We want to identify reproducible product issues using OpenGate Investigate, which is triggering automatic investigation jobs, and it can already help to identify sporadic issues and writing an according comment there. And one of the next step could be to identify reproducible product issues, like based on the results of the up to 4 investigation drops, like if the retry fails, if the last good test job fails, if the last good build job passes, like going back to the last build that passed, and if you retry such test and it still passes with new test code, with new infrastructure, different work and such, then it's very likely that we have a real product issue, and we can add a specific message making that result of the investigation clear. And yeah, and there are some low tickets. I don't want to go into the detail of all of them. Okay, so questions or additions to the specific tasks that we have planned, or maybe tasks which you are missing and you do not see planned? All right, nothing coming up. Okay, so then we can conclude this session. We will still come up with a topic for next week. No, wait, sorry. Bring that up. We do have a topic for next week. Let me provide you a small teaser to that. So the next week, we will hear by Nick interesting stories and lessons learned from the AC failure in a SUSE data center. So I'm not sure, well, it might be entertaining, but it might also be worthwhile to understand, like, what are we busy with, and how we handle such problems, and what other factors impact us. So I hope to see you again next week. Until then, thank you and goodbye.